I welcome back my select viewers to my 125th video of my YouTube channel, Writer Sandhanam Speaks. This is my promised second video in 3 weeks' time as part of my serial talk on one of the ancient Tamil sages, THIRUMOOLAR, whose oral biography was touched upon in the first episode, in which the reason for man's rebirth and his subsequent suffering was explicated by paraphrasing his divine poem, as well as the purpose of his present birth, that is, to praise God in glorious Tamil. To my pleasant surprise, my first episode on this sage has been attracting large number of viewers with their encouraging comments and eager expectations of more on THIRUMOOLAR's poems. As on date, more than 4,000 viewers, as against my normal viewers in hundreds, have listened to it. Considering my YouTube channel has no sponsors and the topic spirituality is not everybody's cup of tea, these numbers in thousands have overwhelmed me, convincing myself that I have not talked in vain, as the English-speaking global audience in good number have taken note of it. One gentleman, Mr. Krishna from Andhra Pradesh, has requested me to send the screenshot of the earlier poem, which I have done it. Another gentleman by name Dr. S. Saravanan from St. Louis, Missouri, United States, have thanked me. I have not crossed the Indian border so far, but the wisdom of THIRUMOOLAR has done it, as wisdom has no borders. In fact, wisdom is independent of time and place. I heartily thank my viewers who always form the minuscule minority in a society obsessed with excessive consumerism and obsessive materialism. So also the case with the minority sages who can be counted on one's fingers across the world, like one Indian Buddha, one Nazareth Jesus, and one Tamil THIRUMOOLAR. They reveal fully themselves only to those who are willing to listen in order to help them individually. That is why they speak esoterically and in parables, particularly Jesus Christ. Do not cast pearls before swine was an instructive warning from the Jesus of Nazareth. So with this introduction, let us take up another poem. Poem number 2169. The 4 lines of which run like this. ஈதென்று அறிந்திலேன் இத்தனை காலமும் ஈதென்று அறிந்தபின் ஏதும் அறிந்திலேன் ஈதென்று அறியும் அறிவை அறிந்தபின் ஈதென்று அறியும் இயல்புடையேனே. I repeat. ஈதென்று அறிந்திலேன் இத்தனை காலமும் ஈதென்று அறிந்தபின் ஏதும் அறிந்திலேன் ஈதென்று அறியும் அறிவை அறிந்தபின் ஈதென்று அறியும் இயல்புடையோனே. It is said that the THIRUMOOLAR, being a mystical poet, have sung mostly esoteric poems with hidden meaning, necessitating expert comments. Only for an earnest aspirant he offers himself. The reason is, as the words of Jesus quoted above, casting pearls of wisdom before the willing fools is a waste. The poet's focus is only on the soul with the spirit of inquiry, eager to know the purpose of life, depressed seeing around him the ephemeral nature of life. While in the first episode, the sage cum poet speaks on the cycle of birth and death with its attendant sorrow, in this episode, he talks of another profound subject, namely, quote, which exists and which exists not, quotation ends. coming as it does from the unsuspected, somebody like THIRUMOOLAR, who has no axe to grind, excepting lifting up the human soul from the quagmire of possession and attachment, we have no option but to believe his words for the simple reason that he as a sage knows, and as non-sage we do not. Like an impartial scientist, the sage reveals his discovery coming out of the laboratory of life. Here I am giving an approximate English translation of the above poem. Quote, "During my birth's bygone, I knew not this truth, on knowing which now I see nothing on earth. Knowing it is only intelligence that exists everywhere, I became it, oh sure." I repeat, during my birth's bygone, I knew not this truth, on knowing which now I see nothing on earth. Knowing it is only intelligence that exists everywhere, I became it, oh sure. This revelation is the first two lines. In the first two lines imply that his ignorance in his past lives kept him in darkness from knowing the truth. Truth in Tamil is called meimai, not fact. But on enlightenment, his worldly material knowledge disappeared. A sage, it is said, can recollect his rebirths as Buddha did, which are composed as Jataka Kathai. No ignorant man can recollect his cycle of birth and death. The third line pertains that during his present birth, he stumbled upon this truth, which he terms it as all-knowing intelligence, which alone exists. The final punchline asserts that once this wisdom dawned on him, he became part of that intelligence. To interpret further, the different perceptions between the present sage and the past non-sage is clearly indicated in this poem. While the ignorant sees the phenomenal world with its material things born out of his senses, the sage perceives it only as a superimposition on the substratum, variously called Brahman, truth, primordial consciousness, and so on. And in the words of THIRUMOOLAR, it is called intelligence, justifying the later Adi Shankara's statement, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Meaning, what we see with our defective human intellectual eye is nothing but the deceptive appearance of the underlying reality. My example, I hope, will clarify it further. We, with our biological eyes, call the wooden table a stable. But a sage with his wisdom eye perceives it as wood only. When you touch the table, you are actually touching the wood, not the table. Here, the unreal table is superimposed on the real substratum, the wood. One more example. In some temples, one sees a stone-carved dog on a pillar. By instinct, you see the dog, but on second sight, you see it only as a stone. One Tamil proverb goes like this: Kallai kandal nayai kanom. Nayai kandal kallai kanom. That is, if one sees the dog, that stone disappears. And if he sees the stone, the dog disappears. U.G. Krishnamurti, another enlightened sage, whom, as luck would have it, I personally knew, used to say many times over, even at the cost of repetitions, quote, You look at everything only through the acquired knowledge. You cannot look at anything without your knowledge interfering. Hence, you cannot really look at anything as it is. Quotation ends. Sri Ramana Maharshi comes to the rescue of THIRUMOOLAR. Quote, you are looking at the self and self only. Self here with a capital S. But you do not know it. Quotation ends. Science too inadvertently approves this. It explains, if the matter is divided and further divided to the minutest part, then one comes across the smallest atom. When the atom is further split, the particles proton, neutron, electron are arrived at. The present day science has discovered yet another particle beneath it called quark, Q-U-A-R-K. All these particles, scientists say, become waves intermittently, leading to the disappearance of matter. The spiritual scientist THIRUMOOLAR perceived this movement of the minutest particles as the intelligent directionless dance, referring to it in some other poems as the divine dance of Shiva. According to sages, the world is a projection of the mind. The unreal mind projects the unreal world. They further explain, mind is a collection of thoughts which disappear in dreamless deep sleep. A humorous remark, quote, no matter, never mind, quote ends, is attributed to the Scottish philosopher David Hume by the author Will Durant in his book, The Story of Philosophy. So THIRUMOOLAR's wisdom has discovered what exists is only intelligence, synonym for Brahman, God, primordial consciousness, self, and so on. The moral of the poem confirms the message in the poem of the first episode. That is, once you are detached from these impermanent material, unreal things, your perception may change and you will be freed from this sorrowful samsara bandham, cycle of birth and death. It is probable, not impossible. THIRUMOOLAR's previous births and his last birth reveals this truth. An earnest seeker could get it, if not in this birth, as THIRUMOOLAR's poem explains. Thank you.